What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Now, I've been active with this whole YouTube gig for 4 years now, and I've only done one collection tour to date. So I thought, why not do another? It's been 2 years since the last one and the collection has grown quite a bit. It's not a big room and there's quite a bit I still want to do before it's where I want it to be, like most of us do. But it's my sanctuary. Also, now my office, which is pretty damn cool. So before we zoom in for a closer look, if you like my content, do us a favor would you? Hit that like button, notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get to it. Kicking off with the Hot Toys 1/6 scale Comic Concepts Iron Man, whom I've posed up inside this Apex Time Infinity display case. The case is cool and fun to use for photography. There's lots of different settings for the lights and I think this particular figure looks great under them. The way the light bounces off that clear plastic makes this the perfect home for this guy for me. Moving on to the Hot Toys Batman. I have the deluxe version, which does come with a lot of cool accessories, which is great for posing and photography. For now though, I've got him sitting up the top of my Dark Knight display cabinet. I do have the InArt coming one day, hopefully, maybe. Still waiting as of the time of this video, but when I do get him, I'll be displaying them together, most likely in another cabinet. Dropping down into the Dark Knight display, I have some of my prized possessions representing one of my favorite trilogies in film. Standing on top of the Dark Knight 1/4 scale base, I have the Hot Toys 1/6 Batman Begins 2.0 with an OT Customs cowl and drape cape, making this guy a favorite in my collection. I mean, look at him. He's an absolute beast. Wish we got more of this suit. Moving over to the Hot Toys DX19, also with an OT Customs cowl and drape cape. I actually don't mind his base either. I've thrown some of his accessories on it to make use of them as well. It's a nice figure, and even though I probably love the Batman Begins suit more, I still love this look. With the OT cowl and thicker neck, I think the figure looks much better than it does stock out of the box. And lastly, in the back, we have the Dark Knight quarter scale 2.0. Not the most ideal way to display him at the moment, stuck in the back here, but eventually he will get his time in the sun. Down below, I have the bust as well with the Bale sculpt on it because, well, I actually like this sculpt, so I'm gonna display it. On the shelf below in this cabinet, I have my first InArt purchase, the Joker Rooted Hair 2-pack Deluxe. I'm very happy with both of these figures. They feel premium and I've had no issues with them at all, yet. I love both looks. The purple jacket look is iconic and the sculpt is great. It's a great first release for a company. Then we have the jail cell look with the jail cell diorama, which is next level. This whole display option is my vibe. I love diorama bases and things like this. I loved Heath's performance of the Joker, and this piece takes me right back to the film. The Dark Knight is still one of the best comic book films ever made. Jumping up to the top of the 6 series Mudgy cases, I have my DCEU collection featuring 8 figures and 3 big diorama bases. One of the main reasons for having them up here is I needed the space to free them up, especially the red and blue suit Superman. I do still need to set up some permanent lighting up here too to showcase them better. Kicking off my Snyderverse, we have the Hot Toys BVS Batman 1.0, and I have him sitting on top of the Batman themed gargoyle base by Base Station. I also have a custom wired cape by Unreal Toys, which I have draped over the back of the base. Now this is a dangerous pose for the fabric and I don't advise you do it with yours. Mine got a tear in the hips, which prompted me to do something different to try for a display. I'll definitely be picking up the 2.0, which at this point isn't released yet. Moving over to the Black Suit Superman, which I got as part of the 2-pack release of him and Nightmare Batman 2.0 from Zack Snyder's Justice League. No mods on this guy, though I will probably add the Angry Sculpt by InArt to this figure when I get him in. I think that will look sweet on this figure. Now, looking at the second piece of the 2-pack, the Nightmare Batman 2.0, I love this look. There's something about it that just goes hard. I've contemplated getting a custom coat for him though, but I'm yet to pull the trigger. This one feels a bit fluffy. Otherwise though, it's a really cool piece. Moving on to the red and blue Justice League Superman, which I have hovering above another gargoyle base. This one being the one that came with the Thunder Toys Spider-Man. Now for this setup, I have modded the figure a bit, starting with a custom wired cape by Unreal Toys, and to help create the illusion of him hovering and to protect the suit from the nasty waist clamp, I've unzipped the back of the suit to allow me to hook some wire from the flight pole in between the gap under the upper body and torso, allowing him to appear unsupported. Onto the newest DCEU addition to the collection, the Hot Toys Peacemaker with his best buddy Eagerly. Seriously a really nice figure, really happy they listened to the feedback and improved this guy before he came out. The body proportions are great, the silicone arms are great, and the face sculpts are on point and fun to interchange. A great show, and I can't wait for season 2. Moving on to the Golden Armor Wonder Woman Deluxe with these beautiful massive wings. This is a fantastic figure. I originally tried to display her in the cabinet, but the wingspan is so huge in my display cases it just felt too cramped. The light bounces off this figure beautifully too, so when I get this area lit up, I know she's going to shine up here. Now onto the other Wonder Woman in the collection, the 1984 version, donning a custom cape I got off eBay. This figure has a lot of great features. The body proportions are fantastic, the seamless look works great, but she does have a giraffe's neck, so the cape for me does a great job of eliminating that issue. Finishing up my DCEU display, we have the Hot Toys Aquaman from his first solo film sitting atop the base that came with the Sideshow Aquaman statue. I chose to go for him sitting atop this like it was a throne for him. I'm a Jason Momoa fan and I love the Aquaman movies, so I'm happy to have this guy in the collection. However, I would love to see someone give him the artisan treatment with rooted hair and a better built body and suit, because this suit in the films does look epic. Okay guys, we'll delve into the Modu cases from the top down now, starting with my MCU Tom Holland Spider-Verse, spanning the top 2 shelves, featuring 19 figures and 11 dioramas. This is one of my favourite displays I've created, covering the films Homecoming, Far From Home, and finally No Way Home. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. Starting with shelf 1, we have Spider-Man, Homecoming and Far From Home covered. This shelf has 10 figures and did require some planning to give each figure room to shine, but also work together in telling a story of Spidey's journey over the 2 films. Beginning with the Spider-Man Homecoming portion of the display, I have only 3 figures to represent this film, starting with the tech suit Spider-Man, which is the movie promo version, fitted with a custom neck sleeve for better looking neck and head transition, and the half-mast head sculpt from the integrated suit figure. Then we have the Iron Man Mark 47 in the back hovering, using the original Mark 46 base. I love this suit design and colour scheme. I originally had him in my Iron Man display, but I think he fits in here better with Spidey, given the part Tony played in mentoring Peter in the films. Finishing up the Homecoming section, we have the Homemade Suit Spidey 2.0, holding up some homemade rubble made by myself and my daughter Mila. We used a base and covered it in foam, which Mila painted and weathered for me. I think she did an amazing job, and this takes me right back to the epic moment when Peter gets himself out of the rubble right before going on to stop Vulture. I love that moment in the film. Kicking off the Far From Home section of the shelf, we start with the Stealth Suit Spidey in battle with the Molten Man illusion / diorama. Not a must-have for most, but for a die-hard Spider-Man fan like myself, I had to have him. The diorama is fun and creates some great display options for this guy. Moving over to my kit-bashed Quentin Beck lurking in the shadows, wearing the Edith glasses, wielding his influence. This is the Hot Toys sculpt on a Coup model body and 1/6 suit clothes, random ones that I purchased from 1/6 Kit. Then we have Mysterio, up front and center, standing atop one of the many drones I purchased to create this display. This is such a great figure. I love this one. For more details on this setup and how I put it all together, go check out my episode of On the Shelf Spider-Man, which is a series I've done for each shelf I've put together, and in that I explain how I set this guy up more in depth. Okay guys, to finish up this shelf, I have 3 of the upgraded suit Spideys and 1 battle damaged upgraded suit Spidey, all together to tell a little story from the end of the film and the final battle. Starting with Spidey flying in after creating his new suit, I have him just resting on top of the waist grabber with some foam on top to protect the suit, which isn't ideal and an eyesore for me, but until I figure out how to suspend him differently, this is it. Then we get to him battling the drones, and with this guy I wanted to have him in full battle with the drone. To achieve this, I'm using the water base that comes with the Aquaman figure, and I have the drone resting on top of that. This also works well in representing the battle over the water at the end of the film. Now, onto one of the more risky poses to try with the 1/6 scale Spider-Man figure, and I call it the Crouching Spider. It's a scary one to leave him in due to the material, so do so at your own risk. I choose to do this as I have a few multiple of this suit, and yes, I have many as I love the red and black. Then finishing up the shelf, we have the battle damaged upgraded suit Spidey, also with the neck sleeve, standing beaten but not defeated, holding onto some broken drone pieces, victorious. I'm really happy with this figure and pose, to be fair. It's subtle and I love the vibe it captures. Okay guys, now let's take a look at shelf number 2, all dedicated to Spider-Man No Way Home. This shelf has a total of 9 figures and 5 pretty big dioramas. My idea for this shelf was to pair each Spider-Man with their respective villains, with Tom being the highlight in the middle of the display. This was a bit of a challenge to give everybody room to breathe given the size of the dioramas, but I'm happy with the result. Starting this shelf with Doc Ock posed up on the Sandman base. Doc Ock is definitely a figure I want to do more posing with. I think a posing video of him fighting Spidey might be on the docket soon. With the Sandman base, it actually comes with the Toby, but for the purpose of this display, I like these two paired up together. Doc Ock has always been a great villain for Spidey. Now, looking at the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the OG, Mr. Tobey Maguire. This is my first Tobey figure, and I'm happy to finally have him in the collection. I love his films and his appearance in No Way Home. It's not just a nostalgia thing for me. As a fan of film, his trilogy of movies had some amazing themes and moments all throughout them. Moving on to the Green Goblin, aka the Hobo Goblin version from No Way Home. I chose to only get 1 goblin for this display for now, and I found this look more visually appealing. There's battle damage and heaps of detail all over the suit, and that head sculpt works really well with it, I think. Sliding across to Doctor Strange, with this one being the newest version from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I wanted this figure but didn't plan on getting the rest of that line, so I thought the No Way Home display would be a great place for him to reside. In my opinion, this is the best Strange to date. The sculpt is fantastic, both in fact, and in hand he has heaps of accessories I haven't even messed with yet. Moving on to the Amazing Spider-Man 2.0, which is really meant to represent his appearance in No Way Home. This is my first Andrew Spidey figure, so I don't have much to compare him to. He's actually a figure I haven't even posed up yet much, so I may have to have a crack and see what we can do with him sometime soon. He was great in No Way Home, and that moment with MJ gets me every time. Taking a look at Electro from No Way Home. I feel like this is an underrated figure. When I got him in hand, I was quite impressed by the head sculpt and likeness to Jamie Foxx. He's not much of a flashy figure outfit wise, but I like it and I enjoyed his performance as this version of Electro enough to want to have him on the shelf. Here we have the lizard base, which I wanted because I wanted a representation, and this is fun for different display options and photography, so I'll definitely be using him for that. Should they have given us just the lizard figure? Yes, but this will do. Then we have the black and gold suit Spider-Man from No Way Home. Man, Hot Toys bamboozled us on this one, releasing it before the film came out. And it's not accurate in many ways to how it is in the film, but whatever. I'm not one to get my knickers in a knot over it. I will say the material does feel a bit different and he does have great articulation. Plus, I still like that black and gold mix. Heading over to the newly acquired red and blue final swing suit from No Way Home. I haven't done any posing with him yet, but this figure is so fantastic. The Tom Holland head sculpt is also the best so far. The diorama base is cool too. It does everything I needed to do. This is definitely a top tier Spider-Man figure. Stay tuned for more posing content with this guy to come. Okay, now finishing up the MCU Spider-Man display, we have the integrated suit Spider-Man with a custom neck sleeve and that amazing head sculpt that comes with the red and blue suit. Now, just so you know, this head doesn't connect to the figure properly. I put a tiny bit of blue tack inside the head sculpt to help it sit on top of the figure's neck. No Way Home is one of my favourite movies, so to be able to have this display is pretty damn cool. Okay guys, here we have the next two shelves, which is part of my Iron Man collection, featuring a total of 17 figures. For those that know my channel know, Iron Man is my guy, and I'm obsessed with building my Iron Man shrine. So bear with me and let's zoom in for a closer look. Okay, let's take a look at shelf 1, featuring a total of 8 figures representing the films Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. This shelf has my ideal spacing and figure amount being nice and full, but not too full. A good problem I have is I still have more growing to do here, so I'll be finding a new way to make up this display soon enough. Kicking off shelf 1 we have Iron Man 1 featuring 3 figures with the Mech Test Tony Stark 2.0, the Mark 1 Diecast 2.0 and the Mark 3 2.0 Deluxe. Damn, that's a mouthful. And of course, how could I forget Dummy in the House? All super special pieces in the collection. These ain't going anywhere. For me, the Mark 1 is a must. It's iconic. Not so much in its design and look, but more in its meaning. The first suit built in a goddamn cave with a bunch of scraps. This version has a light up and a fan on the back powered by USB, which it definitely doesn't need. But in saying that, I will still get this guy hooked up with fusion reactors in the future. Moving on to Mech Test Tony Stark 2.0. This is a great piece also, and as far as I'm concerned, Tony in his workshop are some of my favourite moments from all the films. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The figure, along with Dummy, is awesome and a must for any dedicated Iron Man collector. Finishing up the current Iron Man 1 display, we have the immaculate Mark III 2.0 Deluxe with the Ironmonger base. And I'm just going to say this now, if you were only going to get one Iron Man, this one would be a very strong contender. Even with the flaw of single joint elbows, it does not matter to me. Everything else about this figure is perfect. And look at that sculpt. As far as I'm concerned, it hits on all fronts. Moving over to my kit-bashed Tony Stark and Mark IV. For the Tony, I'm using the sculpt and accessories that come with the Mark IV on a Coup model body with the tux I got from 1/6 kit. The Mark IV I just picked up last year or earlier this year, honestly I can't remember. This guy's a sleeper too. This design is still to this day one of my favourite Iron Man armors ever. I think for me it's the design of the body, from the shoulders to the chest plate, torso and legs. Finishing up the first shelf with the Mark V suit up, the Mark V diecast and the Whiplash 2.0. This became my vision for the display when they announced the Mark V suit up, and I don't see myself changing it anytime soon. The Mark V suit up to me is visually amazing, so many intricate pieces, and though I doubt I'll ever change the pose, I don't feel I need to. I constantly find my eyes going to this figure in the collection. I love it. Then we have the Mark V and Whiplash in the back, locked in battle. Both great figures. I have a full posing showcase on these two battling laid out in story format if you want to go and check that out at some point after this video. I think I captured some great moments of these two in that. Okay guys, let's take a look at shelf number 2, featuring a total of 9 figures. This display for now consists of mainly his suits from the Avengers films, starting with the first Avengers all the way to Endgame. This shelf is definitely pushing the limits when it comes to space and visibility for each piece. So let's zoom in. Starting with the Mark VII diecast, also one of my favourite figures and contender in the race for top Iron Man figure, at least I still think so. As a release, this figure has a bang for buck in spades and has so many moving pieces, accessories, battle damage and a whole other display option included. Yeah, this guy has a G. Then we have the golden Mark 21 Midas from Iron Man 3. I have him here as he is the exact same suit as the Mark 7 with just a different paint job. Now just like the 7, this articulates great and has presence. I've had him in this pose for ages and I'll probably continue to leave him in it like this until I need to switch up the display again, which may come sooner than later. Next up we have the Iron Man Mark 43 from Avengers Age of Ultron. This was my first Iron Man figure and I have him on the base interacting with the Ultron bot that actually comes with the Mark 45. And I don't see myself changing this pose for a long time either, unless I shift him over to the Hulkbuster and maybe do something with that. Moving on to the Mark 45, also from Avengers Age of Ultron, and I currently have him posed up with the Mark 43's Ultron bot. Now, I've had him like this for a while now, and I think I'm probably gonna change this pose up soon. This armor is pretty jacked, so I want to capture his beefiness a bit better on the shelf, I think. Jumping over to the original Iron Man Mark 46 from Captain America Civil War. Another figure I believe is in the running also for top Iron Man figure. Maybe it's just me, but I love the design of this armor. Cap's shield, it doesn't come with him, but I think it's a nice addition to go with this look. With the battle damaged chest to the sculpt with the black eye, it conveys where he's at by the end of the film. Moving up to the Iron Man Mark 46 concept version, which was part of the Marvel 10-year exclusive. It's exactly the same figure as the 46 and 47, just with another different paint job. I wanted to get a bit more adventurous with this pose too, and I quite like it like this in unison with the rest of the figures around him. Let me know what you guys think. Coming down to the Iron Man Mark 50 from Avengers Infinity War. Now I got this guy decked out with accessories because for me it reminds me of all those epic moments Tony had fighting with this suit and manifesting the nanotech to bend to his will. This is the first of 2 I have of this piece, with the other coming up in the Infinity War display. Now, let's take a look at the Mark 85 clean version from Avengers Endgame up the back of the display here. Now for this version, I just wanted to have him straight up and down holding these blades looking awesome with his backpack accessory on. I just wanted to admire the look at this armor design because truly it's definitely one of the best. Finishing up the shelf with yet another Mark 85, this time the battle damage version from Avengers Endgame. I do also have a second copy in my Endgame display on the shelf below, posed up in the snap pose. So for this version I've been experimenting with hitting different poses, with this being my most recent. He has great articulation, and having this one allows me to still have the snap set up whilst being able to create more looks with this guy here. Okay guys, next we have the 2 shelves dedicated to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, featuring 19 figures. Both these films are part of my existence at this point, so having 2 shelves dedicated to them only made sense. Now my plan when creating these displays, I had in mind viewing the shelves like movie posters for the films. Let me know if you think I achieved it in the comments below. Starting with shelf number 1, the Avengers Infinity War display. For this one, I wanted to convey Thanos in the middle, up front and center, conveying victory, as he was the victor in this film. Now let's zoom in. Starting off the shelf, we have the Infinity War Doctor Strange figure, along with the custom extra arm set and all his accessories for a wild display option. I still rate this figure too. He was one of my favourite posing showcases to film called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Poses. Go check that out after this if you're looking for some pose ideas for your Doctor Strange. Coming down to the Infinity War Iron Spider, whom I've posed up in a very compromising pose for his suit material. This is one I'm very happy with though, and I don't see myself changing it anytime soon, especially now with the newer Iron Spider figure coming out soon. For the pose, I'm also using a bit of rebar that came with the Iron Man Mark 46 base figure, in case anyone's wondering. Moving over to the Infinity War Star-Lord, which I picked up for a steal locally here. Probably the cheapest figure I've ever bought brand new. And I actually rate this version. I like the head sculpt and the helmet look, the whole get-up actually. Star-Lord got done a little dirty in Infinity War, but thankfully redeemed in Guardians 3, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. Coming down to Gamora, this being the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 version. I love the Guardian films and all the crew, so getting her was a must. Now for this display, I always knew I wanted to have her posed up being taken away by Thanos as Star-Lord came chasing. I enjoy trying to create moments like this to remind me of the films in my displays. Moving over to Nebula from Avengers Infinity War. Now, she's a character that really grew on me over all the films, and come Guardians 3, I was fully invested in her as a main part of the team. So having a version of her in the collection was a must. Having her behind Thanos in this display is my way of showing how she always felt left behind and in the shadow of her sister when it came to Thanos. Now for the big guy, the Infinity War Thanos, standing victorious. He is massive compared to these guys, so much so his head's nearly touching the roof of the cabinet, just standing there without a base. Now I find the Thanos head sculpt some of the best Hot Toys has done. He definitely has presence on the shelf. Finishing up the shelf with the big three, starting with the Infinity War Thor, who I have wearing a custom wired cape by Unreal Toys. Now I have one for each of my Thor figures and I think they are great and give much better options for flying poses. If you'd like some Thor posing options, check out my Thor posing showcase featuring this guy and the Endgame Thor after this video. Next up we have the second Iron Man Mark 50 posed up with the used Thanos gauntlet in a ground pound type of pose, this time using no accessories, other than the gauntlet of course. I've had him in this for a while now and that back arm still holds up in place and hasn't drooped yet, which was a concern when I put it up like this for a long period of time. And finishing up the shelf we have the Infinity War Steve Rogers in the house, recreating that iconic moment when he enters the movie with the awesome music intro and catches the staff thrown at him. I don't think I'll ever change this pose. I'll probably just keep retweaking it to try and perfect the body position to actually make it look like he's in motion of catching it. Okay guys, let's look at shelf number 2, the Avengers Endgame display. This one is one of my favourite shelves. I'll forever love this movie, and for this display, it's a mixture of both moments from the film and a shrine to the big three at the end. So let's zoom in. Kicking off the shelf with Avengers Endgame, Black Widow and Hawkeye, where I'm going for the moment where they battle to choose who sacrifices themselves to get the Soul Stone. Personally, I think this pose for Black Widow is one of the most heroic poses you can do for her, which I also cannot take credit for. I replicated this after seeing Yongbom on Instagram do this with his Hawkeye and Natasha. Now, for Hawkeye, my pose is quite different to his version, as I have put him jumping up to get an angle at the shot at her feet to knock her off course. This way Hawkeye could make the run for the edge first. This figure is fantastic and comes with 2 cool display options, and I think he's a steal. Moving on to Avengers Endgame Rocket and Iron Patriot. Starting with Rocket first, I'm happy I got him because he is a great character, and by the end of Guardians 3 he had an amazing journey and arc to his story. And then there's Iron Patriot. He's damn heavy and surprisingly quite posable with heaps of weapons, not to mention a very good Don Cheadle head sculpt, which I will be kit bashing shortly just to have a roadie. Zooming in on Pepper Potts, aka Rescue from Avengers Endgame. This is a great figure and I love Pepper and Tony together, so to have a kick-ass version of her to be able to pair up with Tony is awesome. I just recently reposed her too, from flying to this ground pound, and that's so I could bring her forward and make it fit in the display better since I moved everything around. Moving over to the Endgame Battle Damage Thanos figure. Personally, my favourite of the two Thanos figures I have, and that's partly because I like his battle armour, but most importantly it's the sad head sculpt. Actually, it's both the angry and the sad head sculpts. They are so good my camera doesn't do them justice. It's perfect for the moment right when he realises he's failed. Now for the big three together again, we'll begin with Endgame Thor, who I have donning the other custom wired cape by Unreal Toys. This version has the more accurate Stormbreaker 2, which is way bigger than the Infinity War version. I think he looks sick with the cape draping like this. The Hot Toys cape is trash compared to this, in my opinion. Then we have the second clean Iron Man Mark 85, hovering in the middle this time, up the back between Thor and Cap. I enjoy trying to come up with hovering poses for my figures that fly, and this was another fun one to mess around with. It might just be me, but I think he looks pretty badass hovering like this. Coming down to Endgame Captain America, the definitive Cap in my opinion. The figure is fantastic. I love posing him with the broken shield and Mjolnir too, especially in this pose recreating that moment when he catches Mjolnir right before calling out Avengers Assemble. Then to finish up the shelf we have the second battle damaged Iron Man Mark 85, this time in the iconic snap pose. Now within pose like this, I would also argue that this guy is very much a strong contender for the ultimate Iron Man figure to have now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Okay guys, let's take a look at the two other shelves I have dedicated to the Marvel characters I'm also a fan of, like Captain America, Shang-Chi, Loki, Deadpool and Wolverine, totaling 21 figures. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. Okay, let's start off shelf 1 with the Captain America shrine, blending into my Shang-Chi and Wenwu section of the display. I've managed to squeeze in 10 figures into this shelf quite comfortably, and I attribute that to only having one diorama base in here. Kicking off this shelf with my Captain America Winter Soldier display featuring the original 2-pack from the film at the front posed up on the Hydra base from Base Station, and then the newer limited release of the stealth suit from Avengers Endgame up the back. Down front, let's look at the 2-pack, Steve Rogers and the original stealth suit posed up on the Hydra base first. The Steve Rogers is cool, the sculpt is pretty dated now, but I don't mind. Because of that outfit, he poses well. In saying that though, I've had him in this pose for a long time and I don't see myself changing it anytime soon. The OG stealth suit. This one is definitely dated now, but I won't part with him. I've put him through a ton of poses in the past, and considering he's held up okay, you could say he can do it all day. Yeah, I'm sorry. Finishing up the Winter Soldier section, the Stealth Suit 2.0, technically from Endgame, but for me it's representing Winter Soldier. This is a grail for me. In my opinion, the body proportions are much better, the colour of the suit is superior, and both head sculpts are the best to date for a Cap figure. Winter Soldier is a classic, and this figure is a really good representation of this suit. Moving over to the black concept suit Captain America from Captain America Civil War. I really like this figure, the all black is sweet and the suit design is on point. Then to top it off, the body proportions on this guy are great. He comes with 2 concept shields, both black and white, and that's pretty cool. Also with switch out mouth plates. I like this angry one for something different, as it helps convey another emotion when posing. Okay guys, let's look at the center of the display, Endgame Captain America, and not one but 2 Sam Wilson Captain Americas. As this is the second Endgame cap, I had to have the head sculpt on as it's too good not to use. The fact that they also gave him a compass accessory as well was a nice touch, and I think even though it's something simple, it gives a pose like this more gravitas. At least in my mind it does. Then we have Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, our new Captain America. This figure is a knockout of the park. Go check out my full posing video on this guy after this. It was one of my favorite videos to make. The head sculpt is great, the suit design and colors are perfect, and the wings are phenomenal. They pose great and have huge presence. I love Sam's journey so far in the MCU, and I'm looking forward to Captain America 4. Moving on to the 2012 Avengers Captain America 2.0. This is another strong release. The normal head sculpt looks fantastic on this body too. Avengers is still one of my favorite films, and this suit is a great reminder of that original film and Endgame, to be fair. And this pose in fact takes me right back to the final battle in the film when he does start running the show and giving everybody their orders. Moving over to the Shang-Chi and Wenwu section of the display, I've set this up in the middle of the Moji case shelves. Shang-Chi is another MCU classic for me, so much so that I had to grab 2 of each figure just so I could recreate this iconic moment from the film when they're locked in battle with the rings. Looking at Wenwu first, the figure is on point. The suit design is great, with no exposed joints, and he also comes with cool ring effect accessories which I do feel work, especially this one. The head sculpt is very strong too. Hot Toys always does a good job with older characters, and this guy is no different. Now, focusing on Shang-Chi, I think he was perfectly cast in this role. He put in the work on all fronts and did such a fantastic job. He physically stepped up and made us all believe in his martial arts skills. He did a ton of his own stunts, and on top of that, he was charismatic and funny. I've had a lot of fun posing this guy up too. After this, if you haven't already, go check out my posing video on him and my Shang-Chi vs Wenwu fight pose showcase as well. Okay guys, shelf number 2 featuring 11 figures including my Loki collection so far and my Deadpool and Wolverine collections. This shelf is a tight squeeze getting all these guys in here along with the big diorama throne. But we got there. Who knows what I'm going to do when the rest of the Deadpool and Wolverine line comes out. Now let's zoom in. Okay boys and girls, let's take a look at the God of Mischief section of the display, featuring a guest appearance by Baby Pool. Starting with the centerpiece of the Loki display currently, the Avengers Loki 2.0 from Endgame, sitting on Odin's throne holding the Tesseract. Now Loki was great in the Ventures and I loved him as a villain, which is why I'll keep this piece as is for the foreseeable future. Now, looking at the TVA Loki from season 1 of his series on Disney+, this figure, whilst not being flashy design, I find it such a fun piece to have. The head sculpt for me is fantastic. I love this Loki. Tom was on fire in the series. What a fantastic character arc. It made him one of my favorite characters for sure. Moving over to a very under the radar figure I feel. President Loki. Again, not a very flashy outfit, but I love it. This figure is also elevated for me because of that head sculpt and that expression. He's a fun variant to have when it comes to posing and photography. I've also had a lot of fun posing him up to bring out that expression. You can check out that video in the episode of On the Shelf Loki. Now, onto Deadpool from Deadpool 2. This suit feels a bit dated now with the arrival of the new one, but I will concede it's held up pretty well, having been put through a lot of stressful poses in the past. Deadpool is a G, and this version in particular has lots of fun accessories, including the iconic unicorn. With this pose here, I'm breaking the fourth wall as well and saying hello by having DP waving to you from the shelf. Okay guys, moving on to Cable from Deadpool 2. He put in a ton of work to get jacked for this movie, and it's a shame the body isn't quite there on the figure, so posing him with all his kit off doesn't really work for me. I do however think the look works with all the gear on. He has great accessories and poses pretty well even with the single joint elbows. I also rate the sculpt, so I'm glad they made him so I could pair him up with DP here. This guy here is the Wolverine. Currently, I have him wearing the black shirt that comes with the 1973 Wolverine, and I'm using the arm pads that figure comes with to bulk out the arms of this guy. I also have him wearing some custom dog tags which don't come with the figure. I love this movie, so having him holding the sword as well is a good reminder of the film. Moving on to my newest Wolverine to join the collection, the 1973 version from Days of Future Past, which is still one of my favourite X-Men movies. This head sculpt isn't as strong as the new ones coming out, I will admit that, from Deadpool and Wolverine that is, but it does the job on the shelf. And this being the deluxe version, he has a few different display options, which I do like, and I'm gonna say it, it makes me want another. Looking at the other Wolverine from Days of Future Past, a personal grail for me. You don't see a lot of him in this suit, but I just love the design. I think they did a great job with this figure, and I'm super thankful to have him now, as I was looking for him for quite a while. He was fantastic in this film, so having two figures to represent him from it is also pretty awesome. Finishing up the shelf with the special edition early release of Deadpool from Deadpool and Wolverine. This is the ultimate Deadpool to date. The body proportions are much more realistic, the suit material is far better, and the colour and the suit design is peak DP. I cannot wait until the new Wolverine figures get released and we can do some team ups in the display. Stay tuned for more posing videos on Deadpool 2 coming soon. Okay guys, now we're moving over to the top of the next IKEA display case, featuring some more of my Spider-Verse collection, starting with the Hot Toys 1/4 scale Spider-Man from Spider-Man Homecoming. This was the first quarter scale figure I purchased, and it kicked off my appreciation and also addiction for quarter scale figures. The Vulture base is epic and he comes with a ton of accessories. The body proportions are great, making this guy a cool Spider-Man collectible to own. Moving down to the top shelf, on the inside we have up top Venom from the Venom film, posed up along with the Advanced Suit Spider-Man from Insomniac's original video game, and then the new Advanced Suit 2.0 from Spider-Man 2, finishing up with Miles 1.0 from his first game on the PS5. Starting with Venom first, and I gotta say I really like this version of him. He's big, but not too big, and I'm really liking the shine his skin has under these lights. Both sculpts on this guy are great, and he has a lot of accessories like these tendrils here to have fun with when posing. Closing in on the Advanced Suit Spidey next, I really like this figure. He has great muscle proportions and captures the look from the original game really well. I'm obsessed with these Spider-Man games, and I love the first game, so having this suit in the collection was a must. Moving over to Miles from his game, and I have him with the beanie, backpack and Spider Cat, which is a great accessory. Maybe one day I'll get the 2.0 as well, even though it's so similar to this. One, because I just love this world and all the characters, plus this Miles figure poses like a dream and does feel different from the other Spider-Man suits, so I'm assuming the new one would too. Finishing up this top shelf now in the center of the display with the Advanced Suit 2.0 from Spider-Man 2 on PS5, and I gotta say, this may be one of my favorite Spider-Man figures overall. I love the suit design, the colors, the muscle proportions, and all the accessories he comes with, including those mechanical spider legs that are massive. It's a flawless figure in my opinion. Dropping down to the bottom shelf, we have my animated Spider-Verse display featuring the video game classic suit Spidey and his diorama with Scorpion in place representing Peter from the films. And then we have Miles and Gwen from the first film along with Spider-Ham here. Looking awesome. Moving over to the classic suit Spidey, I have him simply standing here holding the newspaper accessory, mainly because I had him previously in a stressful pose for a long time, so I'm leaving him neutral for a while. I recommend you doing that once in a while if you do dynamic posing like me. Moving over to Miles from Into the Spider-Verse and keeping with the more museum-esque theme for this display. I have Miles lifting his mask and admiring his newfound electric abilities, where I'm using a lightning accessory I got from one of my Thor figures to create the look. Those that have this guy know how amazing this figure is. He's another bang for buck purchase with so many accessories and posing options. Finishing up the display now with Gwen from Into the Spider-Verse, another great unique figure with tons of posing and display options. A simple, elegant pose. Both her and Miles allow for so much creative fun posing and display options, but sometimes I find it's nice to just be subtle. Okay guys, now we move on to my Mandalorian display, which I have sitting atop this garage shelf I have in my office here, featuring 7 1/6 scale figures and 1/4 scale figure, along with the blurg. Mando is one of my favourite characters, and I just love being immersed in that world. Starting with the Durasteel Mando on the blurg. This is the 2-pack, which I picked up, well, because it's awesome. I love the Durasteel armor look Mando had in the first few episodes of season 1. It has that cowboy swagger to it. And then you got the blurg, which I think is such a funny, unique looking beast. But because of the connection from the show, it made it a must for me. Moving down to Quill, sitting on the base of the blurg. At the moment, he's the only other figure I have in my Star Wars Mando display. And that's because he's another great character that I really enjoyed in the show, and I loved his relationship with Din. In their short time together, he was a good mentor to him, and I just had to have him. Coming across to the first Durasteel Mando I purchased, in a walking pose representing him walking through the desert as he did in season 1. For this version, I've done a body modification to get him better at articulation, which in the past has assisted me with doing cool dynamic poses, which is befitting such a warrior as Mando. Jumping up to the first Beskar Mando release, which is another figure I body modded back in the day for better articulation. Here I'm trying to take advantage of that by having him using his jetpack up in the air while using his flamethrower and protecting Grogu. For the cape, as it's not wired, I'm using a small metal wire I got myself and I've tied around the flight pole, bent it up and out to assist with holding the cape, creating that flowing in the wind look. Now, looking at the big guy in the middle of the display, the quarter-scale Mandalorian, with his epic diorama base featuring key elements from the series and quarter-scale Grogu, which is the best Grogu I have in the collection to date. I love the proportions of this guy, the whole piece has such presence in the room. One thing I would like to do one day if I get the courage is to possibly repaint his armor in chrome like the new release, as I think that would be perfection. Moving over to the Tank Trooper figure from The Mandalorian Season 2 with the Pedro head sculpt from one of my 2 Chrome Mando figures. I know a lot of people have recreated this look, and probably because the episode this is from is freaking epic. From the moment when he takes his helmet off to the conversation they have at the table with the General, it's such a great episode. Now let's take a look at the Chrome Mando release up front here with the Pedro head sculpt holding onto Grogu, replicating that iconic moment from the end of season 2. Honestly, I have no complaints about this figure. He comes with a ton of accessories, a wired cape, the head sculpt and chrome paint, absolute winner for me. Then we move over to my second copy of this guy with all the kit on, showcasing the other main display option for him. Now, I'm not going to say I got this second one just for this because, well, that would be crazy. I got this second one so I could do all this and use the head sculpt for the Tank Trooper as well. See, Not crazy at all. Okay guys, on the home stretch now, starting at the top of my second last display with the Hot Toys Optimus Prime figure with Starscream wings attached. And yes, if you're wondering, did Hot Toys make a Transformer? Yes they did, and this is him. This guy was my first figure ever, and I have him here with the box behind him, as this is the box that first caught my eye in a window of a games world, which set me on this crazy collecting journey many years ago. Dropping down to the first shelf with the Avengers Age of Ultron Hulk, crouching over my deceased first trusty microphone I purchased for recording, way back when I started my YouTube channel. Fans of the rundown I know will be very shocked about this development, so shout out to you guys. I hope you're happy now, he's dead. Seriously though, shout out to my mate Anthony for hooking me up with this Hulk. Moving down to Moon Knight, which is another stellar release. I haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to posing this guy yet, so he's someone I need to spend more time with. Maybe a showcase should be on the cards for him soon. I love the show and Oscar Isaac was perfect casting. I'm definitely anticipating the second season. Dropping down to the final shelf in this cabinet now, featuring the new Black Panther release and Killmonger from the Black Panther film, posed up alongside this Panther diorama I purchased from Sugo Toys. This Black Panther figure is so good. I like having him like this, just holding the helmet with the head sculpt visible. In the right lighting, this sculpt looks great. Then we have the fantastic Eric Killmonger, which still, after all this time, holds up. That head sculpt is amazing, and that's clearly Michael B. Jordan as Eric. Okay guys, this is the final figures in the collection. My Hulkbuster with the Kit Bash Tony Stark, the quarter scale Iron Man Mark IV with gantry, and the Mark 42, the Prodigal Son, all with fusion reactors hooked up to a portable USB pack, and I gotta say, I love this option. It makes it so much easier to light them up and leave them on as long as I want without worry of batteries dying. Starting with the monster that is the Hulkbuster and another Kit Bash Tony Stark. Presence is the word that comes to mind when I think about this piece. It's hard to articulate the sheer beauty of this figure. I mean, it's just a 10 out of 10, one of Hot Toys' greatest achievements. Then for the Kit Bash Tony Stark holding the suitcase for the Mark V, I'm using the head sculpt from the Mark 50 with the Edith glasses from the Spider-Man upgraded suit figure, along with some suit clothes I got from 1/6 Kit. Moving over to another crown jewel of the collection, the quarter scale Iron Man Mark IV with gantry. This piece is seriously huge. I love it. It's a shame because this figure is so good. I'd love to pose him doing some action poses, but because the gantry aspect is so cool, it's a crime not to use it like this. This guy's a centerpiece for any Iron Man collection and a great representation of the mechanical beginnings of the Iron Man armor. Finishing up the big boy side of the display, we have the Iron Man Mark 42 from Iron Man 3, the Prodigal Son. This guy also comes with battle damage pieces which I have on the figure now, and heaps of intricate moving pieces all over exposing the LEDs within the suit, making him a figure that lights up nicely. I appreciate the different paint scheme of this figure and this suit, and I think Hot Toys did a great job with this piece. Okay guys, to close out this marathon, we have 2 prized possessions left. The Mando helmet bought by my beautiful wife Lani and daughter Mila for my birthday a few years back, and the first piece I covered in my first collection tour. Now, the most valuable piece of all is this coffee mug. My daughter Mila made this for me this year at school, and it's priceless. And that's it guys and girls. I hope you've enjoyed my collection tour Mark II, the 2024 edition, and maybe got some inspiration for your own displays. I thank you all for tuning in, and if you haven't already done so, do us a favor would ya? Hit that like button, notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. But for now guys, until next time, I'm out.